Channel open. Welcome back to WeeklyTrek, a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions podcast network and presented in partnership with TrekCore.com. I am your host, Alex Perry.
What's today's date? The date.
Today's show was recorded on April 7th, 2021, and is current through Star Trek Discovery Season 3, so beware of spoilers. All right, let's get into the show.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
WeeklyTrek is a 30-minute news show, probably a lot longer today, covering the biggest stories from the Star Trek franchise. We are in a new golden age of Star Trek. There are multiple television shows in production, possibly more on the way, and enough merchandise to fill the Bajoran wormhole. So stick with me, and I'll help you sort the real facts from a lot of the Dominion propaganda that you'll find online. But I can't do this alone, and my guest this week is co-host of the Snap Trek podcast, and returning guest, it's Jen Tift. Jen, welcome back to WeeklyTrek.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Jen, you know the drill. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I want to know something that's got you excited about Star Trek this week. What's got you moving at Warp 10?
That is such an unfair question. I thought for sure you would skip that this week because, of course, the answer is just everything that we learned from the panels. You know, if I have to pick one thing, I will. We're going to talk about everything. So
let me suggest one. Which is not one of the newsy pieces out of First Contact Day. I really like these virtual session packages that they have put together, right? Set aside the news piece of it, which is amazing and we'll obviously dive into. The panels they had were great. The discussions they had were great. They were well edited. They didn't feel like they dragged in any places. I actually heard some stories from folks that I hadn't heard before, like the First Contact panel with Brent and Patrick and Jonathan and Alice Krieger. I thought, we're just going to hear the same First Contact stories we've heard 1,000 times before. And we got the backstory behind Two Takes Frakes and Brent Spiner telling the story about him having to do the stunt where he jumps down the missile silo. And I'd never heard those before at the many conventions that I've been to. So, I mean, again, Star Trek Day, when they did this in September, it was great then too. But I think they really are onto something with this sort of virtual day type setup.
I couldn't agree more. I love it too. It was just a joy. Each panel was a joy and a different aspect. And I think what I'm picking then for what's got me excited is these panels really brought to light how much of an actual community the Star Trek universe is. It's not individual. It didn't feel like individual shows. Now it really feels like every show's connected to the greater Star Trek universe. And I just love that sense that we're getting, because when you have a panel with people from Lower Decks, Discovery, and Picard on one panel, it really is just different pieces of the same universe. And it's just one big Star Trek family. And I just love that.
All right. Well, with that, let's get into the week's top stories, because there sure are plenty of them.
There's a war going on, and I'm a reporter.
Well, Viacom CBS's First Contact Day celebration featured major news about 4 of the 5 shows in active production right now. That was Picard, Discovery, Lower Decks, and Prodigy. And given that, and that it was major news for all 4 of them, I think the easiest thing to do is just discuss the day's news in order in which they were revealed. So that starts us off with Star Trek Picard.
The true final frontier is time. Time can turn even our most impulsive, our most ill-considered actions into history. What we do in a crisis often weighs upon us less heavily than what we wish we had done. What could have been. Time offers so many opportunities, but never second chances.
The trial never ends.
Yes, as you just heard, John Delancey, Q himself, was announced as returning to live-action Star Trek after his cameo appearance in the animated Lower Decks show last year. The character of Q will feature in Star Trek Picard Season 2, which seems like, from all of the time travel references that were included in the teaser, a time travel theme. About Q's appearance on the show, Sir Patrick Stewart said that, quote, Q's arrival is, as it often was, utterly unexpected, but also comes at a shattering moment in the episode. And I do mean a shattering moment. Whether it is connected to Q or not, I am not actually quite sure, but there is significant trauma. And in fact, at the moment, I am working on how the trauma of this moment hangs around Picard for quite a substantial part of the episode. And then there he is. And while the teaser trailer did not feature any shots of the characters, it does feature a new office for Admiral Jean-Luc Picard retired at Chateau Picard that includes many more symbols of the captain's past than we saw in Season 1. The portrait of the Enterprise D that hung in his ready room now features over the fireplace, and the Mintuccan tapestry gifted to Picard in Who Watches the Watchers has returned to the back of his chair. In addition, the teaser opens with a very intriguing shot of the stone tablet discovered in the Deep Space Nine episode, The Reckoning, that foretold the coming of said reckoning between the Prophets and the Par race. Could there be some kind of Deep Space Nine tie-in for Picard Season 2? I suppose only time itself will tell. In addition to Delancey and the rest of Season 1's main cast, Viacom CBS have announced that Orla Brady's Laris will return in Season 2, as will Brent Spiner, who presumably will be playing Alton soon. Jen, we've got Q, we've maybe got a Deep Space Nine tie-in, and we've got a very excited sounding Sir Patrick Stewart. How are you feeling about Star Trek Picard Season 2?
I mean, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed and delighted. And of course, Q's back. That's amazing. And it sounds like he's going to play a big part of the season. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a little bit cameo, him popping in and popping out. I'm intrigued by what Patrick Stewart was saying about there being trauma. A little nervous about that, what that means. Literally shattering, he said. That's a little ominous. But when Q is involved and when time is the theme, maybe whatever it is can be fixed or didn't actually, doesn't end up taking place in different timelines. Who knows? Who knows where they're going to go? But I was very surprised that time featured as a theme in this trailer. I wasn't expecting Picard to go there, as a sci-fi conceit. I was expecting time travel, and I love time travel, so that is very interesting to me. And in Patrick Stewart, he even said something like, I wish I could tell you. Will Wheaton asked him for whatever details he give, and he said, I wish I could tell you the storyline, situation, and times that we visit. So he pretty much laid it out that there's time travel, which is interesting. But the thing that I'm still speechless about is the Reckoning tablet being there, because if that's a red herring, that is a cruel trick to play, because that's probably the last thing I would have ever expected to see in a Picard trailer. And just where my mind goes when I think about why that's there and what that means. And it's just, oh my gosh, so exciting. So exciting. Love it.
Yeah, the teaser is clearly designed to be an Easter egg hunt.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we're not reading too much into it by believing that, because Terry Matalas, the new showrunner for Picard, retweeted the trailer and was like, did you find all the Easter eggs we included in there? So they clearly did a lot of this on purpose. And there are multiple references to time travel included in the trailer. The very first shot pulls in on a clock, which the time is set to 10:04, Back to the Future reference. There's an item on Picard's desk, which is homage to H.G. Wells's The Time Machine, right? There's a ton in there that just says time travel, time travel, time travel. You have this tablet from The Reckoning, which you can come at it from the perspective of thinking, well, maybe they're just trying to play to the idea that, Picard is an archaeologist. And so ancient things, you would have some of those because he's an archaeologist. He would have access to some of those things. But that is such a very specific item to have chosen. And not just chosen. I mean, it's not like they went into a warehouse full of Berman-era Star Trek props and just picked something out of a bin and said, sure, just put this on a table in Picard's office, because...
I'm picturing the Indiana Jones warehouse.
Yeah, exactly. Because that warehouse doesn't exist anymore, right? The original Reckoning tablet is sitting in somebody's house somewhere. I wish it was sitting in the glass case behind me with the rest of my props, but somebody has it. And so that means that the Picard prop department built it. Right, effectively they must have, unless they found the collector who's got the version of it, but like, why bother? Just build a new one. But the fact they built a new one meant that it is very intentionally there to tell us something. And what could it possibly tell us other than something Deep Space Nine related? Patrick Stewart said something else too, which was, he said that there were things that had never been seen over the course of the Next Generation, which we were finally getting the opportunity to see. And one of the other things too is on Picard's desk, which again, I really like the fact that there's much more of a direct tie into the Next Generation just in these shots. I mean, I think Picard is one of those shows where the first season was quite challenging for a lot of people and it was very heavy. And I think the show would benefit. It's one of the few shows where I think it would benefit from leaning into nostalgia a little more. And clearly they are saying that that's what they're doing for this season. But there is one of the shots is they do linger on a brass model of the Stargazer, which if this is a show about time travel, and Sir Patrick Stewart is saying we're going to see some things that we've never gotten the opportunity to see even through the Next Generation. I mean, to me, that says, maybe there is some kind of look back further than the Enterprise D to Picard's first command, which aside from showing up in the battle, we never really got much of an opportunity to see anything to do with it. So that could be very exciting.
Yeah, and the wording in the trailer too, that you regret the things you didn't do, and time doesn't give you second chances, and we know what happened on the Stargazer. We know who was lost on the Stargazer, and that's exciting too. That could involve. That's how we get the Crusher family, back involved too, which is interesting. And it's interesting that they're going there when there's so much for Picard to deal with besides thinking about the past right now, which is interesting too. But I guess, when you go through a trauma like being uploaded into an android body or whatever actually happened, I guess you start thinking about things in your life, and I don't know. I think it's an interesting time for Q to come and for all this timey-wimey stuff to happen. But I keep going back to, I know I'm sorry, I'm just such a Deep Space Nine stan, but there's so many other time involved, little doodads from Trek they could have picked. Besides that. So it makes me think, why would they do that? Why did they pick that one? He had to get it from Bajor. It's I don't know, to study it. It's just, my mind is going in a million different directions, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, and it really sort of opens up this, what is Picard season 2? I mean, honestly, we have no idea, right? You can sort of see coming out of season 1, if you watch season 1 and then you were told that in season 2, it was going to involve Brent Spiner was going to come back and he was going to be playing Alton Soong again. He was going to have all the same main cast involved in it. You would sort of see a continuation of that kind of Romulan, synth sort of storyline. But this does kind of take us in quite a lurchingly different direction, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Yeah. I have always felt that, when the show first came out, people were like, oh, Q would never work for Picard because he's too, he's too much of a comedic character and the show's clearly too serious and heavy. But that's never been the Q that I've been really interested in. The Q I've always been really interested in is the sort of vaguely sinister Q who appears in Encounter at Farpoint, All Good Things, and Tapestry, an episode in which he allows Picard to go back in time and relive a part of his life that he has regrets about, to see if he would decide to do something differently.
There's precedent for it.
Yeah.
And Q can get dark, and he sounds dark at the end. When he says the line at the end, it's not a joking Q line. You know, I mean, his sinister laugh, it's not a I'm messing with you laugh. It's like is the sinister Q, like you mentioned, laugh. And, you know, Picard has times of levity too. You know, it is a very serious show, but Q can do both. You can do both with Q.
And that's also one of the interesting things about The Office itself, having all of those very strong tie-ins back to the Next Generation. Picard season 1 opened on a character who clearly was somewhat ashamed of his past, who was running away from the person that he was because he had quit Starfleet and clearly regretted the decision, but had just kind of, you know, sort of wallowed in that set of emotions. And he had put all of his, you know, stuff into a storage locker in San Francisco, and his home had some of those items, but not a ton of them, right? There was no Nantucket tapestry. The story of season 1 of Picard, though, by the end of the season, of course, he's a whole new man, quite literally, because he is an android now. But if you just take the character himself, I think he's much more in touch with himself by the end of that season, and much more has sort of reconciled himself with his past by the end of season 1. So you could see a re-energized and reinvigorated Picard. I mean, not least because he's an android body now, coming back to Earth and deciding to get all that stuff. That is sort of that direct connection to who he was out of storage and put it back around his house again. And, you know, there were lots of people in season 1 saying, well, Picard feels like a totally different character. He doesn't feel like Jean-Luc Picard. And in some ways they were right. And the show was intentionally doing that and was trying to lead you back to the Picard that everybody knew. And so I'm sort of hoping that their decision to include a lot of these references back to the Next Generation is a statement that says, we've completed that journey. The Picard that you knew is back, and this is his story from this point forward.
Or maybe he's not, but, you know, another take on it could be that's his way of dealing with, you know, becoming, I mean, he's gonna have to deal with the fact that he's now an android.
Sure.
And I think him bringing all of his old stuff out of storage is kind of a way for him to feel more like himself. You know, so I think there might still be season 2 might still be him getting back to, like you said, the Picard that we knew from Next Gen, and maybe Q is going to give him another poke in that direction, because that Q has done that in the past. You know, giving him that poke that he needs, and it's just interesting, and I'm just relieved that Laris is going to be back for sure, and will help him, you know, too. Help him deal with that too.
Yeah, we need a salty-mouthed Irish Romulan back in the show for sure. There's a missing component from the back half of Picard season 1 for sure.
Definitely.
While there was not an explicit panel at First Contact Day for Star Trek Discovery, Viacom CBS did treat us to our first trailer for the upcoming 4th season, which they said is expected to debut this year.
We are not in this alone. None of us are. We're all living in uncertainty. Even for a crew as familiar with it as this one. The stress is taking its toll. But we are not in this alone. None of us are.
5 light years across. That's the size of the gravitational anomaly.
Where's it headed next?
It could go anywhere. And we may not have any kind of warning at all.
Federation, non-Federation. This anomaly threatens us equally.
Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together.
Indeed, we are more than allies.
Captain Burnham, make no mistake. You are in charge.
She has faith in me.
We are facing something we don't understand. Something that could tear us all apart. But there's only one way to confront the unknown. Together.
In addition to the trailer which you just heard, Viacom CBS have also released a synopsis for Season 4. Quote, Season 4 of Star Trek Discovery finds Captain Burnham and the crew of the USS Discovery facing a threat unlike any other they've encountered. With Federation and non-Federation worlds alike feeling the impact, they must confront the unknown and work together to ensure a hopeful future for all. The most striking visual change to the show for Season 4 appears to be another uniform change. After closing out Season 3 in the grey Starfleet uniforms of the 32nd century, it appears that they have been redesigned. The costumes now feature the bright primary division colours instead of the grey, making Discovery probably as colourful as it has been since it was first released. The trailer also teases that we might see a half-Cardassian Federation president, a return to Ni'Var and an appearance by Gabrielle Burnham, and a couple of quick shots of Saru back in a red Command Starfleet uniform. Perhaps my theory from a previous episode about a second starship with a spore drive will bear out. Jen, what did you think about our first look at Star Trek Discovery Season 4?
I'm excited. That's the theme of the day. Yeah, first of all, the uniforms really, really pop against the blues and the grays of the disco sets, and it looks really sharp. Yeah, everyone looks like they're really into their own. All that, just from what we've seen, it's gonna be interesting. It's a fully formed crew in the 33rd century now, or 32nd century now, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I like a good space anomaly. I don't need it to be like a full season arc of of trying to figure out a space anomaly, but we don't know. We don't know from just a teaser trailer what it's going to be, but it's exciting.
Yeah, I really like the uniform changes. I like the bright colors. I guess there was a production panel that was like makeup and special effects and props and stuff. And Gersha Phillips, the Star Trek Discovery costume designer, was on that panel. And this was before the trailer had dropped. She did sort of cryptically indicate that they had made some changes to the uniforms, and the reason for it was because the gray uniforms were basically the same color as the Discovery walls for the sets were, and so they decided that it was not visually interesting enough to have the crew wearing the gray uniforms on gray sets, and so they went with a sort of a return to the primary color style. But I love that. I mean, I liked the Discovery seasons 1, 2, and 3 uniforms, but I love those primary colors. I mean, it's been such a hallmark of Star Trek since the very beginning, and I also love they've kept the red as the command division.
Yes,
and so it is great to see Captain Michael Burnham in a red uniform. I like him a lot. I think they're going to work out really well.
I love that Sonequa is in Nichelle Nichols red, but she's the captain. And I love that she's in red. I think that's just perfect. But yeah, I mean, I like the disco uniforms too. The original ones, they were cool, but I like being back in the colors. Not a fan of the asymmetrical hem. I got to get used to that.
It is a very distinctive choice.
Like, it's not something that I think I'd want to cosplay, just because I always feel like I'm uneven, like I'm walking diagonally.
Yeah, you constantly doing the Picard maneuver.
Right. Oh, but I'm not, I'm not the right person to talk about fashion. I'm glad. I didn't mind the gray either, but I definitely, after seeing the gray versus seeing the new colored uniform, just seeing how it just pops. It's just, this is definitely the right call. And you mentioned that panel with the creative team, which was really, really interesting to listen to. Another thing that excited me for Discovery on that panel was when Jason Zimmerman, I think he's the visual effects coordinator.
Yep.
He talked a little bit about their augmented reality wall, which sounded so fascinating. I want a panel just about that. I can't wait to see, how everything's going to look in season 4 with that change. I think that's going to be interesting. And it must have been a really different experience filming with one of those. He said it's like 270 degrees, he said, of panels, and using the same game engine technology. And it just sounds so fascinating. And I bet it's going to look really sharp. And I can't wait for that. I want a making of just about that.
Yeah, technology that was first pioneered by The Mandalorian, but Star Trek then took it and said, well, why don't we make it bigger than what they've got in The Mandalorian? So I guess Jason said the one they've got now is the biggest in the world that exists so far.
Oh, that's so cool. But I bet it's a different experience acting in front of one of those.
Sure.
Because you actually have something to play off of. And I know it just translates different on screen too. And it's going to be interesting. But they were talking, but it was interesting. The reason they were talking about it was because they were talking about how it's different with, the way that the light and the LED panels like interact with the makeup and the prosthetics and the costumes and everything like that, and how it all has to work together, which is just really interesting. That was a really interesting panel.
Yeah, and it's only a teaser so far, so I mean, It is the 1 minute worth of footage, but can't tell any kind of COVID impacts thus far on sort of production. I mean, clearly they have a decent number of guest stars. You see we think it's maybe the Federation president who's at least part Cardassian. Gabriel Burnham's back. They're
yes, the Kawatmalat.
Yep.
I was so excited to see them back.
Always a welcome appearance by the Kawatmalat.
I just love that that's a thing now. Like I love that it started in Picard and it was awesome, and then Discovery took it as their own and ran with it, and I'm so glad they're coming back.
And we'll have to see it, sort of what the kind of storyline of the season is going to be. It's clear at this point, the Discovery writers' room, they build these seasons around these long stories, and it's just the way that Discovery is built. And of course, there's some people there's some people for whom that doesn't work, but this is just clearly the sort of creative decision they've made. Right. It does sound like it, and you don't get much out of the teaser, but Michelle Paradise, or maybe it was Alex Kurtzman, was talking in the wrap up of season 3 about how they just started shooting season 4, and they sort of indicated that there was maybe a climate change allegory or, sort of an environmental disaster type thing where the enemy of the season is not a person, but the weather itself.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. And I like that too, because there were a lot of parallels for me with that, even with the burn.
Yeah.
Because the burn was an environmental disaster too. It was their fuel source disappeared, and that's what happened. It's like an allegory for the electrical grid. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. I hadn't heard that interview that they're going to kind of take that idea and run. And there's so many things, like Star Trek has touched on that in the past and haven't gone far enough. What was the title of the episode of Next Generation where warp drive was?
It's Force of Nature, isn't it?
Thank you. Yeah, Force of Nature. And they're kind of just like, okay, well, like after that, it was like, okay, well, you're authorized to travel faster for this mission. You know what I mean? And then it was just like, it was never a thing again. So that'll be interesting. I'm really, that has me looking forward to season 4 even more. I like it. It's important and timely, and that's what Star Trek does best. I love it.
And it says coming 2021, Michelle Paradise tweeted when the trailer went up, we're working really hard so that we can bring you the season this year. I still think it won't be until late 2021. And actually, my theory this week is about the very crowded back half of the year schedule for Star Trek, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, so we do not have too long to wait, which is very, very exciting.
Yeah. Yay.
Well, get your calendars out. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2 will premiere on August 12th, 2021, just 4 short months from now. In addition to the announcement of a release date, First Contact Day also featured a Season 2 trailer for the animated comedy.
It is my pleasure to give the viewers out there in internet land a tiny little mini microscopic sneak peek at what is to come on Lower Decks Season 2.
What up? We doing sci-fi stuff today?
Only thing missing is Boimler. He's got to be having the time of his life.
Red alert! I'm starting to think this jam session's got too many licks and not enough comps.
What does that even mean?
And if that wasn't enough to delight Lower Decks fans, it was also announced that Lower Decks will return for a 3rd season of 10 episodes. Yay. So get ready, Cerritos fans, Jen Tift included. You not only have 10 episodes of Lower Decks to look forward to this year, you also have 10 episodes to look forward to next year. As they did say, the expectation was that season 3 would broadcast in 2022. Well, Jen, I know you are a huge Lower Decks fan, and this news must have you buzzing.
Oh, Lower Decks every August from now until the end of time, please. It's a perfect time of year for Lower Decks. I love it. I'm so excited. The trailer was great. It was another Easter egg hunt.
Totally.
But that's what Lower Decks is. That's a lot of what Lower Decks is. Not all, but yeah. So it just made me excited. I love that we have the date. Like I said, August. I just love that. And I hope I know we'll talk about this with your theory, but I really liked how last year it went Lower Decks and then Discovery. We had that nice transition, and we had we laughed our asses off, and then we explored the new time period, and it was great. And I'm just so excited. I love Lower Decks. I have nothing intelligent to say. It's just different levels of excitement in all of these announcements.
I think what's most interesting, and they had this panel and it was about comedy and Star Trek, and they sort of really focused on, it was Jonathan Frakes and Brent Spiner and Paul F. Tompkins, who was Dr. Mabiglio on Lower Decks season 1, the psychiatrist, the bird psychiatrist with the food puns. And he's also the co-host of the Pod Directive and a professional comedian, and Mike McMahon. And the panel itself was not about Lower Decks, but at the end they kind of did divert a little bit to give Mike McMahon the opportunity to set up the trailer. And he said that their approach to the second season, that the first season was very much about establishing Lower Decks as its own thing and not kind of playing too much in the sandbox of the Star Trek toys and having the guest characters and the voice actors. I mean, obviously they had a bit of that in season 1, but he did sort of indicate that there was going to be more of that in season 2. Now the show had established itself and proved itself. I think he sort of talked about it from the perspective of, we needed the audience to understand that we weren't going to make fun of it in a malicious way. We were going to laugh with it because we love it so much. And that now they felt that they had proved that gave them more flexibility to think a bit bigger and a bit more creatively about what that could look like. And that to me is super exciting, because for me that was my favorite part of Lower Decks, was the way that it played with the tropes of previous Star Trek shows and put fun twists on them. And I love the style and I love the characters. The other interesting thing out of the panel too was they talked about how on the Berman era shows, there was this real kind of directive, no improvisation, that the actors had to speak the lines as they were written in the script exactly. And if any word was out of place, either they had to shoot it again or call up to the writer's room and get permission for whatever change it was they were seeking, a process that could take several hours. And then they asked Mike McMahon, how does it work on Lower Decks? Is there any improvisation? And he was like, yes, we encourage improvisation. That they'll do a first take is the scripted version, and then with each subsequent take there'll be more and more improvisation, and then they'll ultimately pick whichever they sort of think is the funniest. And so in some ways I would actually really like to kind of see the scripts for Lower Decks at some point, because it'd be fascinating to see how far away the finished product ends up being from the episode itself. But yeah, I couldn't be more thrilled and happy about the fact that Lower Decks season 2 is on the way, and I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, and they can improvise, because literally everyone in that cast is independently a funny person,
right?
You can do that. And they talked, and that's what makes it so great. They talked about how the comedy in Trek is worse because it's never punching down, and Lower Decks never punches down at Star Trek. They're not laughing at Star Trek, and that first season proved that, like you said. But also what that first season did was make me at least fall in love with every single character on that show, on the Cerritos, and because the actors and because of how it's written. But they talked about comedy being important in Star Trek, because I think Paul F. Tompkins said something like, because you love these characters, you want them to be okay, you want them to have these moments of levity. You know what I mean? You want them to not just be serious all the time.
Right.
And I think that's kind of like, that's what Lower Decks is on steroids. It's like I love these characters too, so I can laugh with them about the ridiculous things that happen to them, and they managed to make me love these characters. And now they have that set up, so they can just roll with it in season 2, and it sounds like they're going to just completely roll with it, and I can't wait to see what they came up with.
And I am thrilled about a season 3. Animation's such a funny beast. The process is unusual compared to the rest of the way that Hollywood production works. And so you do get a lot of really great animated shows that don't last very long for reasons that have nothing to do with the quality of the production or how popular it is or anything like that. And so I did have this kind of nervous feeling in the pit of my stomach that maybe, it was going to be 2 seasons of Lower Decks and that was going to be it. So I'm thrilled to hear there's a 3rd season. I'm really, really looking forward to 10 more of these.
I mean, also some of the longest running shows on TV are
also true. Yes, absolutely. So, yes.
Hopefully we got one of those. I
think The Simpsons is still on as we're speaking.
Right? Unbelievable. Yeah. When it started, I was Bart's age. Now I'm older than Homer. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I hope so. There's so much material there. So many places they can go. I hope it lasts for a very long time. I hope our Augusts are filled with comedy for the next decade.
Here. Bring it on. Bring it on. Well, lastly, for show news this week, though we do have a 5th big story still to come. That's how much of a big week it was. I didn't want to leave it till next week. We finally got a bit more information about Star Trek Prodigy and a look at how Captain Janeway will appear in animated form. Kevin and Dan Hageman, alongside Kate Mulgrew, revealed that the show will be set in 2383, about 5 years after Voyager returns to the Alpha Quadrant. They also revealed that the show, as many had suspected, will be set in the Delta Quadrant. And we also finally know the form in which Janeway will be appearing to our young crew of aliens. She is the emergency training hologram aboard the empty starship and will provide guidance to the characters in the visage of early season Janeway from Voyager in that capacity. However, given the show is set only a few years after Voyager returned home, I wouldn't rule out an eventual appearance from Admiral Janeway. Maybe it's the kind of thing where, series finale, they finally meet the real person behind the hologram that they've been interacting with for the rest of the series. There's no release date yet for Prodigy.
That makes me want to cry already. Okay, I'm sorry.
I mean, I've just written their series finale for them. They can, I'll take all the royalties.
Job done.
There's no release date yet for Prodigy, and we still don't know much about the main cast, though the Hagemans hinted that one of the aliens has a tie-in to the original series. But we do know, again, it's coming in 2021. Lower Decks Season 2, Prodigy Season 1, Discovery Season 4, all slated for this year. Jen, how do the latest revelations for Prodigy have you feeling about that show?
Well, like I said, I almost wanted to cry when I heard Kate Mulgrew talking about this version of Janeway and how she feels children are going to just immediately connect with her, and it's just chills because Janeway is such a caretaker. Throughout Voyager, she was a caretaker. No pun intended. Yeah, right. And now she's being a caretaker for these young Delta Quadrant aliens, which is just, I like it. I wasn't sure how I felt, if I wanted her to be a hologram or if I wanted it to be her. But I think this is going to be an interesting way to go. And I think she's right. I think I can see my children really connecting with that character and that version of Janeway that they revealed. I could see them really connecting with her as someone who is a moral authority, someone that they can trust and be their role model. And it's thrilling as a parent and as a Star Trek fan.
Yeah, I have said on previous episodes that if it did turn out that Janeway was a hologram, I was probably going to be disappointed. But I think that is tempered by the news that I had sort of always seen it as, she would be a hologram and the show would be set 200 years in the future. And so there would be no connection to the, the real life physical person. But I think the fact that it seems to have been intentionally set 2383, only 5 years after Voyager's back from the Delta Quadrant, we know Janeway's an admiral at this point, the actual person. Yeah. I think that eventually there will be a meeting between these characters and Admiral Janeway.
Yeah, I agree. And I was also a little disappointed at first too, but the more I thought about it, the more I like the hologram idea, because I like the idea of this crew being alone, I guess. Because I mean, as if I was a child watching this show, if there was a real person, a real grown-up who was kind of like telling them what to do, it would give them less agency. You know what I mean? So I think as a child, I would like it better if like, oh, there's these kids on this ship and they have this basically computer program that they could, get advice from and figure out what the right thing to do is if they really need it. But really they're on their own. They're in this strange part of space with a strange ship and doing their own thing. And the kids rule. So the more I thought about it, I said, oh, okay, that kind of makes a lot more sense because that's really the focus of the show. It's not, we would like it to be Janeway, but that's really not the focus of the show. And I like what you said. Yeah. It does open up that possibility that you're right. They might actually get to talk to the real Janeway someday and how cool that would be for them and for the kids watching the show. Oh, she was a real person. And she, and she's this, glowing admiral, and I just, it's just going to be great.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And ultimately, so people are like, oh, well, what's the ship and why is it there? And where does an emergency training hologram come from? I feel fairly confident about my theory, which is that after Voyager returned to the Alpha Quadrant, they figured out how to do slipstream properly, slapped it on a starship and sent it to explore the Delta Quadrant. At some point, the crew were forced to abandon ship. And that's how these alien kids find an empty Federation starship that has a Janeway training program aboard, which if you were a new crew going to the Delta Quadrant to explore for the first time on a sanctioned Starfleet mission, you would want to have Janeway's experience and expertise close at hand.
Yeah, that's along the lines of what I was thinking too. Because of course they would send a Janeway, and it's Janeway from the early seasons of Voyager too, because it's the Janeway who was the captain in the Delta Quadrant. That's why you would model it after that Janeway and not Admiral Janeway. It makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, and who knows, if it was manned or maybe it was not a manned ship in the first place, who knows? But I just, we'll find out in the first episode and it will make sense. And and if it doesn't really matter because especially with a children's program, it just, here's the situation you're in and then go have adventures, So I'm not really too concerned with the origin story unless that does become part of it. Like that might be like, what happened to the crew? Where's the crew of the ship? Where did they go? Are they stranded in the Delta Quadrant now? Or was it not manned in the first place? And then that's non-issue, who knows? But we'll find out and I can't wait.
Well, and I think too, that's the sort of premise of the show as it's been explained to us is this crew of kids will sort of learn about the ideals of Starfleet from the Janeway hologram. And if it's the case that they, first get the ship and they're like, okay, we got all this freedom now, we're going to go do whatever the hell we want to. But then slowly over the course of the series, they're like, oh, well, actually, we should go and find the people who were originally the crew of this ship. And then they're the ones to rescue them. That would be like, I think that would be really cool.
That would be cool.
What if it ends up being like, Captain Harry Kim, who got stranded on this planet and that's who they rescue? I'm totally fan fictioning here on just this short amount of information on Prodigy, but I am fascinated by this show.
Yeah, you know what? And I mean, you say, yeah, Captain Harry Kim, but there are so many possibilities for so many different Trek references here. And we know so much. We know a lot about the Delta Quadrant from Voyager. We're going to see Kazon. We're going to see, hopefully not Fadians. But oh man, yeah. Oh, I love it. So many possibilities. It's going to be great.
But that thing about the Delta Quadrant too, right, is we obviously know a lot about the Delta Quadrant from Voyager's specific kind of journey that it took through that space, but there's also the prospect for them to create, whole new races and, all kinds of really interesting things that you can do in animation in a way that you can't do in live action that, won't be canon breaking or anything like that because it's the Delta Quadrant. They're just in a part of space that Voyager never went to. And so we're going to see and experience things that will be, sort of new science fiction that will be part of the Star Trek universe, but won't be, oh, well, how can this be here? Because we know that Cardassian space is right over here. And we know that Klingons occupied this colony over here. And a bit, which I think for kids is really great because you don't have to come into it with all of this baggage of knowing everything about the geopolitics of the Alpha Quadrant in order to enjoy the story. This can just be unencumbered by any of that, tell a great story in an unexplored part of space, you know, and then to the extent that kids like that and they enjoy it, then they might want to go and check out some of those other shows and learn more of the history and continuity and canon of the whole thing. But yeah, I think it's a smart move on their part to do it that way.
Yeah, and you can see that just in the design of the crew. that we don't even know the ship's name yet. I was gonna say it's the Prodigy, but I guess they're the Prodigies. Who knows? But yeah, even just in the design of the crew, they're just so diverse and alien to the Star Trek universe, which is so cool. But I think there's going to be a lot more references than maybe you might even initially think to the greater Star Trek universe, based on just the way that they've been talking lately. All the, creators have been talking about it, but we'll see.
And our last major story this week is the news that a new official Star Trek convention will be beaming down to Chicago in 2022. Scheduled for April 8th to 10th, 2022, Star Trek Mission Chicago will be held at the McCormick Place Convention Center in Chicago, Illinois. The new official convention, which will be held annually, is being run by Reed Pop, the company that currently runs the Star Wars Celebration conventions and New York Comic-Con. And like Star Wars Celebration, it is expected that the official Star Trek Mission convention will move to a new city each year, providing fans with opportunities to attend from all parts of the country, and making it a little easier in certain years on international friends as well who may not have as far to travel. And what of the annual Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, Nevada that used to be called Star Trek Las Vegas? Well, as we discussed on a previous episode of Weekly Trek, Creation Entertainment will continue to hold a Star Trek convention in Las Vegas in August. This year, it's being called the 55-year Mission Tour, but it won't be an official convention anymore, and so won't feature any of the same announcements or product launches that we have seen in recent years. Sir Patrick Stewart announcing his return to Star Trek is not the kind of caliber of event that will happen at Las Vegas anymore. That will now happen at the Star Trek Mission conventions. Given Star Trek Mission Chicago is still a whole year away, 1 year from now, I fully expect to be checked into my hotel in Chicago, ready, willing, and able to start a new official Star Trek convention. But because it's still a year away, there's not too much information yet, but a website and newsletter are up and running at StarTrekMissions.com. And in true Reed Pop style, there are already several Star Trek Mission t-shirts for sale. And in my excitement for a return to in-person conventions, I will confess I may already have purchased one. Well, Jen, I know where I will be on April 8th, 2020, and that's at the McCormick Place Convention Center in Chicago. Will I see you there too?
You'll see me there. I got first round. Yeah, definitely. I'm excited about this. I'm assuming things will be okay for this sort of event. Knock on wood. That might be knock on wood. That might be a big assumption, but assuming that's all squared away, it's a good time for me to travel. I like the idea of, Chicago's cool, but I like the idea of it being a different place every year. That's fun. It's fun to try new things and visit new places instead of, going back to the same place every year. I like that aspect of it. And it sounds like they're going big with this. The runners of this convention go big, right? So it's exciting, and I'm planning on going.
Yeah, McCormick Place is a huge convention center. I haven't been there personally, but my wife has been there for several trade shows in the industry that she works in, and it's massive. Reed Pop have done an official Star Trek convention before. They did the Star Trek Mission New York convention in 2016 for the 50th anniversary. And at that point, there had been an expectation that there were going to be more of those to come. And, we sort of didn't hear anything more. And now here we are 5 years later, and they have the official license. They exclusively hold the official license in North America for non-cruise conventions, because of course there's still the Star Trek cruise that will take place every year, and that's an official event too. But now they sort of have the ownership over this. And the event that they had at the Javits Center in New York City in 2016, also very good, very professional. I really liked it. I think that was their first one, and so they were sort of getting their sea legs under them, and I think it all came together quite quickly. Whereas this one, I think, has been in the works for for quite a while. We've certainly heard rumors about a new official Star Trek convention for some time now. And obviously the big difference being in 2016, when they held Star Trek Mission New York, there were no new shows on television. That didn't happen until 2017. So, now there are 5 shows, and I think there's a lot more interest in the Star Trek franchise today than perhaps even there was for the 50th anniversary when it took place in 2016. Creation, I loved going to STLV. I think I'll probably continue going to Las Vegas every year, at least for the next couple of years, to see how that event changes now that it's not an official convention anymore. But I'm very interested in this new official convention. I think Creation were very set in their ways. They did things the same way today that they had done them 40 years ago. And I think that was to the detriment of being able to have a really great official convention. I think the only thing I will miss about Creation is we're going to get a massive main theater and everybody who has a ticket can get a seat in there, because I know that Reed Pop tends not to operate that way. And that's how they worked at Star Trek Mission New York. Was there is a bit more kind of lining up to get into panels, and maybe you're not going to get in and see everything. So that's the one thing that I will miss. But in terms of everything else, I mean, comparing Star Trek Las Vegas to Star Trek Mission New York, I thought Mission New York was much better run than Star Trek Las Vegas had been that year. And so, yeah, this is very exciting. And I do also like the fact that it's going to be in Chicago next year. I only have to fly for an hour and a half in order to get there. And it's not going to take me 5 hours. And it's not going to be Las Vegas in August when it's 115 degrees outside. Though, if my Las Vegas experience is any... Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. If my Las Vegas experience is anything to go by, I will walk into the convention center on the first day of the convention, and I will walk out on the last day, and I will never get the opportunity to see anything in the city that I'm in itself while the convention itself is going on, which is a sign that I've had a very good time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. And a year from now, I'm going to be gearing up for it, guaranteed.
Same. Let's do it.
Well, we've talked about the facts, and now let's speculate on what's going to happen in the future of Star Trek.
You make some very good points, Captain. But it's still all speculation and theory.
So each week, I and my guest give you a wish or theory we're nurturing about any of the shows or the future of the franchise. So Jen, let's hear your theory or wish for this week.
All right. Okay, so I deal in wishes.
Yep, let's do it.
I always deal in wishes, not theories, because, what do I know? But I got a couple of things I want to talk. So we talked about, how I can't stop thinking about the Reckoning tablet. I just can't. I can't stop thinking about it.
Okay, so give me your best wish for the Reckoning tablet.
Okay, well, I know they're not getting Avery Brooks.
Highly unlikely,
to be bent. I understand that that's less than a 1% chance that is happening. But I do know that another player that featured heavily in The Reckoning might be up for a gig on Picard, and that might be Sarah Clofton. And I would love to see that. He's on my list of possible Picard cameos that I never would have thought would have been possible until Monday. And I would love to see
Well, you know who else featured very strongly in that episode?
Yeah, Kira, not a visitor, right? Yeah, that's a possibility now too. Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably a stronger possibility too, because he had to get that from Bajor.
Right.
Like that's an artifact that belongs to the Bajoran people. And who would he talk to? He would talk to Kira, Vedic Kira.
Right, Vedic Kira, Captain Kira, however it ends up shaking out.
And that would be glorious too. Yeah, so I guess my wish is really just Deep Space Nine people cameos, which I didn't guess would be a thing until Monday, and it just opened up that possibilities for that. Just very exciting.
Yeah, we've been waiting for our big Deep Space Nine tie-in, and I will say, anytime the Avery Brooks idea comes up, I'm right there being it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Yeah. It's never going to happen. But I can't help but feel just ever so slightly humbled by the fact that if you were to go back in time 4 years, we would have said exactly the same thing about Sir Patrick Stewart. I mean, they are different, right? Sir Patrick Stewart's still a working actor.
Yeah, he's still acting
in major Hollywood productions. Avery, as far as we can tell, retired from public life. People still talk to him on the phone, but he's not made any public appearances now for a number of years. And so not clear, what he is up to now, and so what that will mean. And so I continue to think that there's a very, very, very low chance of it, but I just cannot say with 100% certainty that it absolutely won't happen, because we've got Sir Patrick Stewart back and we've got Kate Mulgrew back. And yes, those were different and more likely to happen for the reasons we just laid out, but it just doesn't quite 100% eliminate it.
And they just gave me that little nugget of hope with that stupid prop. So if that doesn't feature prominently, that's gonna be the cruelest red herring that they've ever pulled. But yeah, but it's also it's fun now to have that little glimmer of, well, maybe someday I can dream about it now. So that is kind of fun. So I like that. So yeah, obviously seeing the Cisco return from the Celestial Temple. Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna stop thinking about it now.
Some kind of Deep Space Nine tie-in, right? I mean, since it is
that's
a Deep
really,
Space Nine
I'll be
tie-in.
happy. Yeah, because I just think that's really cool that we do have a Deep Space Nine tie-in now with that, and that means that just opens up a world of possibilities. Right. Yeah, so that's I just love it. But I did have another.
Go for it.
I actually just tweeted about this one today. So one of the things I love about Lower Decks is the people who make it. They're all just great, funny, nice people. And there's so many actual legit Star Trek fans. And they're just great. Just recently, even like Paul Scheer was on the Pod Directive, and it was cool to see he's a legit fan. Dawn Lewis, the amazing Dawn Lewis on the panel. We didn't talk about the Woman in Motion panel.
Fabulous,
which was an amazing panel. I pretty much just bawled throughout the whole thing, but she's a legit Star Trek fan from childhood. Oh yeah, too.
Absolutely.
And these people are just so great, and I would just love a chance. And they all also highly resemble their characters.
Yes, they do.
And I've just been dreaming about them getting a chance to be their characters as themselves. And the form I've been thinking about it in is a short trek, live action Lower Decks short trek. So that's the wish that I've been having. I mean, they could so easily all snap into their characters looks wise, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I just think it'd just be so funny. I think they should just do it, not even mention anything is weird, and just have a little Lower Decks, scenes with them just playing their characters as themselves. And I think that'd be so great.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the thing that happened today you're referring to is Jack Quaid said he would willingly show up to a Star Trek convention dressed as Boimler, and then Tawny Newsome said
purple hair.
Yeah, said she'd do it too. And then Mike McMahon was like, that sounds great. Let's get, Eugene Cordero and Noah Wells to agree to do it as well.
Oh,
and,
man.
I'm down.
Could you imagine?
That sounds great.
That would be so great. Yeah. And so if you can get them all in costume, do it. And then film it and make it
sell it as a photo op. That'd sell out in a New York minute.
That absolutely. I would definitely splurge for that one.
Big time.
Oh, man.
You're listening, CBS? You want my money? You got plenty of it, but you want more of it.
They do have a lot of it, don't they?
Lots of it, yeah. I'm not going to say how much, but a lot.
Man. Yeah. So that would be, I think that's great if they do that. And I think, and even like the second tier characters too, like I mentioned, Dawn Lewis, who I love, and Jerry O'Connell, and it's just, they're all so great.
Okay, so here's my theory. And everybody who listens to the show knows my favorite thing to do is to figure out when Star Trek's going to be on telly. And so I have been noodling over what we know about 2021 and the Star Trek calendar, and something's not quite adding up for me. Lower Deck Season 2 is going to premiere August the 12th, which means that its finale will debut, I think it's like October the 14th. if Lower Decks is next, which means that there's not going to be a show on before Lower Decks, and we're expecting Prodigy to air this year, and we're expecting Discovery to start this year, if Lower Decks is up first and they run then from August the 12th through the end of the year, the date that Star Trek Discovery Season 4 would premiere will be December 30th of 2021. I mean, sure, it's a 2021 premiere, but it's not really a 21 premiere, if you get what I'm saying. And I also think it's highly unlikely that they're going to open a season on the day before New Year's Eve during the Christmas season. I just don't see it happening. So that only leaves a few possibilities. One would be, so they're all supposed to come in 2021. So let's take that as that's actually going to happen. Of course, the easiest option is to say, well, they say 2021, but in reality, one of them's not going to show up until 2022. But let's take them at their word for 2021. There's really only two options in my mind. If we say the idea that Lower Deck starts August 12th, runs for 10 weeks, Prodigy starts October the whatever it is and runs for 10 weeks, and then on December the 30th of 2021, Star Trek Discovery Season 4 premieres. If we say that's ridiculous, then either Prodigy is going to air before Lower Decks Season 2, and in order for that to happen and the shows not to overlap, it would have to be on air by June 4th, which is less than 2 months from today, which seems super unlikely given that we didn't get a trailer for Prodigy at First Contact Day. We've not seen any footage of the show at this point, and we know the Lower Decks date is fixed, and they have a trailer ready to go, and they're confident enough about August 12th to tell us that that's going to be the day that the show starts. So Prodigy could go before Lower Decks, but I have a hard time seeing it given how little we know about the show. We're only 2 months out, and they just had an opportunity to show us a trailer if they're that far along, and they're not. Which to me leaves the only possibility being if we say that them running non-overlapping for the rest of the year after August 12th is off the table, two of these shows are going to have to overlap for at least a few weeks. If Discovery is going to start earlier than December 30th of 2021, it just has to happen because there's just not enough weeks left by the end of the year. I mean, you could see it where Lower Decks airs for a full season and then Prodigy picks up right after, and then maybe Discovery premieres, a couple of weeks before the end of the Prodigy season to give them some time to themselves to do it. But I'm just not sure how they can run these three shows in this year with what we know right now without them overlapping, at least for a few weeks. So my theory is that there are going to be not 10 weeks, but there are going to be 3-4 weeks this year where we're going to get 2 Star Trek episodes. Jen, what do you think?
I'll take that. That sounds awesome. But I wouldn't discount the Prodigy in June theory, because that's what I think is going to happen is June. And that's because with children's shows, they don't give you a lot of time ahead of time. That's not like a typical thing that they do. I know this is a little bit different because there's interest in there's adult interest in this show too. And I don't know the business reasons for that, but I usually you don't get too much advance notice for when the children's shows are coming out. And I don't know why that is. So I don't think it would be that weird that we haven't seen anything until June, especially too. Also, I think the most pertinent thing was us seeing Janeway. I think it'd be too much to give us a date, to give us a trailer all at, you know what I mean? Like, cause that everyone was waiting for that Janeway. That was like the thing, like, we want to see Janeway. And that's what the adults who are interested in the show want to see. So I think it makes sense to separate that out from a trailer that you might want to show your kids, like, oh, look at this new show coming up, or or giving it the date, they don't, for whatever reason, it's not always that much. I don't know the business reasons for that, but I just know because, every day, oh, when are new episodes of Miraculous Ladybug coming out? When are new episodes? Mom, check this, and it's just from personal experience of that, I wouldn't rule out a June beginning for Prodigy.
And in fairness to you for that also, I mean, we maybe got only about a month's notice on Lower Deck Season 1 coming out. We did not know the premiere date for that show until I think it was maybe only like a month out. And it was really only about 6 weeks out that they started even showing us, I think, the Entertainment Weekly. And I think you were maybe my guest on that show. It was Entertainment Weekly, and it's the first time we'd learned anything new about Lower Decks, and that was like June, and it came out in August.
Oh,
so
okay.
maybe, yeah. I mean, I'm not ruling it out.
But if they, what do you think would overlap? If they overlap,
I think they would run Lower Decks with no overlaps. They would start Prodigy and run it for a few weeks, so you would get the first like 3, 4, 5 episodes in uncontested, and then you would start up Discovery with the thinking that those are two totally different audiences, right? And so it's fine to overlap them in a way that
you wouldn't do 2 animated
exactly, and you wouldn't do 2 adult shows overlapping. But I mean, Picard and Prodigy are probably the 2 that are most diametrically opposed on the list of shows that we have right now. But I think Discovery is kind of the next rung down from that in being you're appealing to very different people by having these 2 shows, and so therefore you could overlap it. And I think it would be a one-off thing, right? Like I think it's a COVID consequence and a consequence of the shift in strategy for Prodigy from having it on Nickelodeon, which was where it was originally going to first broadcast, and shifting it onto Paramount Plus.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because June's a good time for a kid's show to come out. I know they do that a lot, like summer shows versus like, you know, it's usually like September for regular show. But you're right, I forgot that it's not on Nickelodeon at first. I don't know if they said if it's going to run completely on Paramount Plus and then go to Nickelodeon, or if they're going to, I don't know what the strategy there is when they're going to move it. But
I mean, don't get me wrong. I want it to be on in June because I only want it to be 2 months until I get the chance to. It's just it feels odd to me that they announce Lower Decks as August 12th.
It is, yeah.
If there's one,
because they gave us one. If they did that, that's the one smack in the middle.
Right, exactly, right.
Yeah.
Why not hype the one that's coming next rather than the one that's coming after it?
I hope they don't overlap, but I totally see. You're right. It would have to if they want to get them all in, and Lower Decks is the first one. There's no other choice. But I think it would be a little bit distracting. I think to me, like I really hope that that's not true, because it'd be distracting to have like one day of Prodigy and then have to switch gears a few days later to Discovery. But I wouldn't complain.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna get
woe is you, right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, my diamond shoes are too tight. I have 2 Star Trek shows on at the same time. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule it out that we get Prodigy as like a summer break kids show in June. And what if you said what it would have to be like June, start like early June if it to be done in time for Lower Decks?
Yeah, June 3rd.
June 3rd.
If you're going to run Prodigy
right after Memorial Day.
Right.
That's actually
if Prodigy starts and then you have no break and then the next week it's Lower Decks, June 3rd. If it's a Thursday, I mean, they might do a different day because it's a kid's show. You know, you could see them doing a Saturday release.
Oh yeah. Oh, exciting. Yeah, and then because what time? Because Discovery started then. Did we even have a break?
No,
between Lower Decks and
we
Discovery?
didn't. It was 23 straight weeks of Star Trek last year.
That's right. Oh, that was glorious.
and so Lower Decks ended October the 8th, I think, and then the 15th was the first Discovery episode, and they got through 9 before the end of the year. My guess is this year,
there's a couple.
If Lower Decks will end October the 15th, I think there probably would be a few weeks before Discovery got underway. I don't think they're going to get through 9 before the end of 2021. I think they might get through 3 or 4, but that still doesn't leave enough of a gap to run Prodigy in between.
Right.
Unless you push it all the way out to December 30th. I just don't see Discovery Season 4 premiering on December 30th.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't seem likely. I don't know. They promised me 3 Trek shows in 2021. I'm holding them to it.
I mean, if it's going to be June 3rd, today is April 7th.
I hope so.
So we're going to find out soon enough, right? Because even if they only give 2 weeks of notice that Prodigy is coming, that is still only about a month and change away from now for the drop dead date for Prodigy to run before Lower Decks.
I mean, I think that's what they'll do. I think they wanted to maybe, you know, because it's different. Like Lower Decks season 2, you can announce that date because it's season 2. It's not as like a premiere is like a big deal. You know, I don't know. I could see them wanting to separate that news, like make that news its own big thing, like an announcement at some other time. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm excited. I'm hoping for June. Maybe that's why. Again, that's my, I'm going with my wish. But I don't know. That's sometimes how children's shows roll. So can't wait to find out.
We'll find out soon enough. Do you have a theory or a wish for Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, or Prodigy that you'd like to share? Tweet them to me at WeeklyTrek or email them to me at weeklytrek@thetricordertransmissions.com, and I might feature your theory in a future episode. Well, that's all the time we've got for this episode of Weekly Trek. Thank you so much to my guest, Jen Tift, for joining me today. Jen, how can people contact you if they want to continue the conversation?
You can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Eda Quarks, and my podcast is called Snaptrek.
And you can find this show on Twitter at WeeklyTrek and me at Alexander T. Perry. And if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. And please check out some of the other great shows on the Tricorder Transmissions. And if you like our shows, please also consider becoming a Patreon of Tricorder, which you can find at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. And lastly, if you're looking for Star Trek news on the internet, I hope you will turn to trekcore.com. Well, thank you, Jen. Thank you to all of my listeners. And until next week, live long and prosper.